So if you want to supercharge your real estate sales techniques, there's a few things that you need to know. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite techniques, when to use them, how to use them, and when not to use them, when to hold back. So now this is a amazing topic for me. My background is in sales. Before I was in real estate sales, I was in corporate sales and led sales teams, and I've absorbed hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales training. So here's how you supercharge your real estate techniques. The first thing is to understand the moment at which you're using each sales technique. I'm going to give you 3 moments that are actual sales moments in real estate, right? Many people think of sales incorrectly because they're thinking of selling the property, and there's an element of that. But the first moment that you're selling in real estate is when you are selling yourself to an appointment about real estate, right? So you're now talking to a person, a potential client, a potential customer, and you've got to go from a conversation to a client. And I've got a whole video on exactly how to do that. But the moment that happens is you're not actually trying to sell a house in that moment. You're trying to sell another interaction. You're trying to sell a meeting. You're trying to sell a face-to-face interaction with this client so that they can go from being a person that you're talking about real estate with to a client that's actually working with you. Now, one of the first things they teach you in sales is that sales is a person-to-person sport. It's belly to belly, right? And that's because there is a psychological gravity that happens when you're physically with people. I know there's a lot of phone sales. I know that there's a lot of, Zoom meetings, and all of those have a place as far as efficiency and effectiveness. In fact, you're probably having this conversation on the phone or possibly on a Zoom meeting so that you can get face-to-face with them. You want to be face-to-face with them as soon as possible because that's where that personal influence begins to take effect, and they begin to think of you as their realtor and to start doing real estate stuff with you. Until the moment that you're physically together, in their mind, you're not their chosen realtor. But as soon as you're physically together doing real estate stuff, in their mind, you're the realtor. And that really is the moment that they became your client. It's not when they signed. That's an afterthought. It's part of the process that they sign the buyer agency agreement or the listing agreement. The moment it happened is when you got face to face and started trying to help them with their problems in person. That's the moment of conversion. So in order to convert them to get to that moment, you're on the phone, and that is a sales moment. You need a framework to go from phone to face to face. That is actual sales, okay? And I'm going to give you some techniques to help you with that. The second moment of sales is when you go from appointment to client, right? And so when you're face to face, but they haven't made their final selection as far as which agent they're going to work with, there's a conversion moment that happens there, an actual sales moment that you're going to want to use sales techniques and frameworks to help you be effective in that moment. The third moment of sales that occurs in real estate is when you are talking to an agent or a buyer for a property, and it's time now to persuade them to figure out why they would buy, why wouldn't they buy, and to help them through that process. So those are 3 distinct moments, and they have techniques that can be shared, but you have to understand what your goal is. Your first goal on the phone is to get face to face. When you're face to face, your goal is to turn them into a buyer or a client, right? And then your third goal is to actually sell the property. So don't get confused and try to do goal number 3 at the same time as you're doing goal number 1. First tip to supercharge your sales techniques is to understand the moments of sales in the process. Okay, now that was framework, that was big picture, that was high level. Now let's talk about some of the specific techniques that you want to employ in order to make those moments effective and to be effective with your time when you're in each one of those moments. The first thing to understand is the principle of relationship over profit, okay? Because you won't get the profit without the relationship. And if you put the relationship first, you will get the profit eventually if you're able to help them solve their problem. So you'll find lots of moments where you have to use some discretion to push or pull or to love on somebody, and always prioritize the relationship over the profit, and you will get better results than if you were just hyper focused on technique. A big mistake that people make in this is when they try to qualify buyers too soon, right? And they're trying to get into the finances, they're trying to use their specific realtor expertise to understand if that client is really a good buyer or not right now, and the client senses it, right? And they feel like they're, it's like that scene in Pretty Woman where they're getting sized up to see if this is really a good person to work with, right? So always seek to help the person, understand the person, seek to put together a solution for them rather than sizing them up. So if you have to choose between getting face-to-face with someone that maybe isn't qualified, you will be able to help that person put together a plan to get qualified if there's a good relationship in place, versus if you spend too much time qualifying, then you are more likely to lose more clients, okay? You've got to choose pick your poison as far as which side of the coin you'd rather be on there. But that's an important principle, is putting the relationship ahead of the profit whenever you have to make a decision, okay? And that goes for things like being pushy on the phone, asking an additional question, or pushing follow-up, or pushing too hard for an appointment. Those are common mistakes that people make when they're trying to implement sales techniques. So the best technique of all, right, just to keep this at a high level theme of supercharging your sales techniques, the best one is listening, right? And the best way to listen is to come prepared with questions. And that's why I've got a whole framework of questions to help you from start to finish. I'll link to that video so you can understand it. But those questions are designed to open them up so that you know everything that you need to know to help them solve a problem, because you've got solutions to problems that they didn't even know how to ask. And the only way to get there is to have the right questions, because he who asks the questions, or she who asks the questions, is in control of the conversation. So you control the conversation by asking the right questions, and then you're affirming them and supporting them all the way along the way. You let them know that they have control in the conversation, that you're not manipulating them or tricking them, that they can exit the conversation, they can choose a different topic. You're always giving them the out, because if they feel like you're controlling it too much, then they're going to start to resist psychologically. So you make sure that they feel the control, that they feel like they're being supported, that they feel like you've got their back every step of the way. And then those questions, that is the real sales work, right? Is the right flow of questions. And I've got a whole video on this that'll help you understand it. And then the next technique that goes along with those questions, we're just going to call it labeling or reflecting, okay? You're going to want to create that interpersonal connection with them by reflecting their body language, right? It's called mirroring, right? Where if their body language is one way, they got their arms crossed, you cross your arms. And then at some point in that conversation, you take the lead where you uncross your arms and see if they follow you, right? So you're supporting them, and then whatever answer they give you to a question, you reflect it back to them to make sure that you understood right. And so they say, yeah, we might want to move, but it just seems like it's going to be hard with my wife's job. So you can say, like, your wife's job, and then you're just reflecting the question back to them, right? Or you can be like, ooh, sounds like you guys have a lot on your plate. And that's a reflecting tactic to have them elaborate a little bit more. There's 1,000 ways to do it. I'll give you a couple of great books. David Sandler, You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bicycle at a Seminar. Incredible book. And then the other one is the Negotiating book. But those books are going to give you the techniques that you need to leverage any conversation specifically. So when you understand when to use sales, when you understand what the psychology is between the people, right? And that you want them to feel like they're in the driver's seat, even if you're kind of guiding them through the process. You're supporting them, you're affirming them, and then you're just using your expertise to steer them through the process. You're going to win every single time. And then if you use a few techniques like mirroring, like labeling, like reflecting, and you start to peel back the layers so that you see, okay, are they giving me the real answer, or are they giving me a safe answer, telling me what I want to hear rather than their real issue, right? So you put those things to work and you will absolutely supercharge your sales technique. And if you want the script with all the questions, I've got it. I'll link to it right here so that you can understand and get through all those questions. Check out the script, check out the video that explains how to have that real estate conversation with anyone, and you'll supercharge your real estate sales techniques.